Hello friends, welcome to our latest video. Today we bring you another episode in our Land of the Lost series. The sad, strange disappearance of Johnny Gosch. Join us. Now, on this channel we discuss missing persons cases of all kinds. Sometimes the missing are found, unharmed and relatively unscathed, the victim perhaps of a kidnapping or some other sinister plot. Most of the time though, people who go missing are found relatively quickly because they went missing by choice or simple misadventure. Those are the cases there's no need to really discuss that much further due to the happy ending being the result of some misunderstanding or accident that caused it all in the first place. Then, there are some strange cases that start off relatively the same as all the others, only for there to be so many strange twists and bizarre turns, it's almost hard to keep up. Today, we're discussing one of those very cases. What happened to Johnny Gosch? Now, what did happen to Johnny Gosch is still unknown completely, but his disappearance has become so convoluted, with years of misleading media reporting, unreliable witnesses, conflicting information being given by people close to the case, and so much more. At the end of the day, if we believe even some of what is thought to be fact about this particular case, we could all very well feel insane and a bit lost ourselves, losing a bit more faith in the world in which we live, one detail at a time. The backstory. On September 5th, 1982, a 12-year-old boy from West Des Moines, Iowa, named Johnny Gosch went missing in the early morning hours while out on his paper route. The community and Johnny's family would never be the same again. Johnny's mother, Noreen Gosch, has since been on a mission all her own. A mission to not only find the truth about what happened to her beloved son that clear and fine morning, but to also expose some horrendous atrocities, possibly involving human trafficking, and the people who deal in such things as well. Many believe this case is one of a cover-up, one which rises to the highest ranks of politicians, and even further, if you can believe it. So let's get into Johnny's story. It was the early morning, and Johnny was out on his paper route alone. Normally, his father went with him, and Johnny had asked his father the night before if he could go by himself that day. His father initially said no, but Johnny went by himself anyway, and subsequently was never seen again. Sort of. Some witnesses came forward and claimed that a man had stopped and asked Johnny for directions. And once he pulled off, Johnny had mentioned to another paper boy that the guy in the car had scared him a little. That same car, an old Ford Fairmont, that had stopped and somewhat frightened Johnny, seemingly pulled off and waited until he was out of sight of anyone else on the street that day. Two men apparently grabbed him off the street and held him down in the back of the old car, according to witnesses, who also said that the car pulled away so quickly after snatching Johnny that the tires screeched as they drove away and out of sight. Unfortunately, and for unknown reasons, no one who saw this abduction, and there were several people who did see it apparently, none of them reported the incident to the authorities. It actually wasn't until the customers on Johnny's route called his parents to ask why their papers hadn't yet been delivered. Unbelievable. This was hours after the abduction itself, and so much precious time had already been wasted due to all these people not doing their civic duty. See something, say something. If you see a car snatch a kid off the street, call the police immediately. Johnny's father went to go and look for him along his route, and quickly found the wagon where he kept his newspapers on the side of the street from which he was taken, and knew immediately something was wrong. It was very unlike Johnny to be so irresponsible to just leave his wagon and papers there and just take off. His father called his mother, and together they notified the authorities. This is where, at least to some people, and you can be your own judge of it of course, where the story stops making sense. The parents have described their initial experience with authorities as somewhat humiliating, to say the very least. The police considered the young man to be a runaway. Even after interviewing several witnesses who had since come forward with accounts of the strange man, the actual abduction itself, and even the screeching tires of the vehicle as it made a fast getaway with Johnny in the back seat, they were very slow to respond in the first place, acting as if it were an everyday occurrence and not an emergency that a 12-year-old boy could have been snatched in plain sight of multiple witnesses by at least two strange men. Allegedly. Fortunately for Johnny, his mom wasn't going to back down, and reiterated over and over and over again that this was outside of her son's character, and she knew beyond a doubt that her son hadn't run away but had been taken. Still, the police weren't taking any action. They were working under the runaway theory, so Noreen, Johnny's mom, organized her own search party made up of family, friends, and the community as a whole to try and find Johnny, or at least spread awareness about his abduction. Noreen even reached out to the FBI, as it is and was back then protocol that they get involved immediately if a kidnapping takes place due to the likelihood of the victim being brought across state lines. However, she soon realized they weren't going to be much, if any, help, and decided to take on the entire investigation herself. She contacted local and even national media in order to raise the awareness of her son's case all across the country, as well as in her own local community. It worked, and the case almost immediately made headlines in all media outlets. Noreen hired a private investigator and even followed up leads herself whenever she could. What she learned could still be, by some, be alleged and must have been horrifying and debilitating, especially to a mother. She found out that Johnny had been abducted for the sole purpose of being used in a trafficking ring. Abusers that spread throughout the globe and involved some very high-ranking people and officials all over the world. He wasn't killed, but some might say his fate was worse than death. He was being kept alive and traumatized in strange and possibly even satanic ways as part of breaking him down mentally, physically, and emotionally, perhaps even spiritually. It was all a part of damaging and possibly eliminating any self-esteem the young boy might have had. This was said to have made him more vulnerable to the brainwashing and susceptible to mind control that would follow. This was done so that technically he wouldn't have to be in prison because he would be a slave in every sense of the word to the people who were involved in all this terror. Now again, this is all theory and conjecture. About 6 months after he was kidnapped, a woman at a convenience store several states away in Oklahoma alleged a young boy came running up to her screaming, "I'm Johnny Gosch, I've been kidnapped." According to this witness, 2 men immediately ran up to the young boy, grabbed him, and made a hasty retreat, never to be seen again by the woman or at that particular convenience store. New evidence would continue to surface in the coming years. Some contacted the Gosches and informed them that they had come into the possession of a dollar bill with the message, "I'm alive, Johnny Gosch," written on it. Mr. Gosch mailed the person another dollar bill in return for this one, and upon examining the writing on the bill when he received it, Johnny's mother confirmed her son's handwriting. Johnny had, at least according to Noreen, written the message. A while later, in Denver, Colorado, another bill surfaced, and written on it in red nail polish were the words, "Johnny Gosch was here." Noreen believed the truth about her son's abduction, and what it had all been a part of was purposely being hushed by authorities and almost everyone involved in finding the truth because of what it stood for. The abuse of power, and the ease with which the powerful, rich, and elite get away with whatever they want. Now this may seem very strange and out of place, but consider the things that have happened recently in the Jeffrey Epstein case. Now it doesn't sound so far-fetched, does it? So, Noreen refused to give up on her son, though, and continued her fight to not only expose what had happened to Johnny, but to possibly bring him home one day as well. She vowed that she wasn't going to stop until the entire truth was revealed. According to Noreen, this trafficking organization, Underground, that had taken her son, was connected to some pretty powerful higher-ups, including those who worked for the CIA, politicians in our nation's capital, and even the United States military. Eventually, young and older men alike started to come forward, mainly due to Noreen's strength, bravery, and dedication to finding her son, and claimed that they had been abducted as part of the same ring as Johnny and others. And they started giving information not just to the Gosches, but to the press and the authorities as well. Many of these men and boys confirmed what Noreen had suspected all along. It was a trafficking ring, and it was global. Eventually, too, throughout the years, and with the help of family and friends, loved ones, and even the media, Noreen would meet many of these men. There were those who said that they knew Johnny and had spent time with him during their horrific ordeal. They gave her more updated information on how he was doing and his physical condition, but none were ever able to tell her where her son was exactly. This was all allegedly due to the fact that organizations like the one involved in the trafficking ring were very mobile and constantly on the move. She eventually learned that Johnny, along with another child about his age, had eventually escaped their captors and were living in fear of their lives, constantly on the run and in hiding. Though she eventually did give up her search for and hopes of her son ever coming home, Noreen didn't stop. She became an activist, giving press releases regularly, appearing in public on behalf of missing children in general. It was through Noreen's brave efforts and love for her son that Johnny and other missing children were the first to appear on the backs of milk cartons nationally. The hope was that someone, somewhere, would come forward with information on the particular child featured and possibly lead to a homecoming for the family. Despite all the work she was doing and countless leads that came in throughout the years, none ever led her any closer to actually being reunited with her own son. Sometime in 1997, 15 years after Johnny had originally been abducted, and soon after Noreen had given a television appearance where she spoke a special message to Johnny in case he were listening that day, there was a knock at Noreen's door. It was the middle of the night, and it had awakened her from sleep. When she went to the door and looked through the peephole, she saw two young men standing there. She asked who it was, and the response must have come as quite a shock to this still grieving mother. "Mom, it's me, Johnny. Can I come in?" She couldn't get the door open fast enough. Although it had been 15 years and her son was no longer a young boy, she knew immediately that this was him. Her son had come home to her at last. Unfortunately, though, Johnny hadn't come to stay and was only there briefly. He hadn't come back to live again as a happy family and move on. He'd come to ask her for her help. He talked briefly about the last 15 years, and suddenly Noreen realized that everything she had thought had happened and was going on was true. It was like Johnny had brought with him the few pieces still missing from the puzzle she had begun to put together in her head the very day he had gone missing. Johnny was extremely nervous the whole time he was visiting that night, and he asked his mother to help him bring his captors and abductors to justice. According to him, if they didn't get caught, he would have to live in fear for his life and for the rest of his life. Always in hiding, constantly on the run. No way to live. Johnny stayed a few hours and left again before sunrise. He made his mom promise she wouldn't tell anyone he had stopped by or what he had told and asked of her. She promised her son she would never tell that she saw him that night, and off he went, back into the world, with Noreen once again not knowing where he was going or if he would even ever be back. Noreen Gosch continues to this day to fight for justice and give voices to those who don't have their own anymore. She's an activist for our world's most vulnerable, our children, and she does everything she can to help spread awareness to trafficking rings and what is allegedly going on globally regarding such atrocities. She consistently brought attention to the other victims of the same trafficking ring her son was a part of, and also to others who were victimized by those connected to the one that took Johnny. In 2000, she published a book called Why Johnny Can't Come Home, and gave a detailed account of everything she had learned about her son's and other children's cases. It's all the information she has uncovered and retained throughout the years, and includes some shocking allegations of a cover-up by higher-ups and authority figures we are supposed to rely on to keep us and our kids safe. Shortly after Johnny's disappearance, Noreen founded the Johnny Gosch Foundation. According to the website, the organization's purpose is to educate others as to the reality and seriousness, kidnapping, trafficking, and how it could happen to your family, the dangers of those traffickers, and how cunningly they operate in our country. Johnny's story has become pretty well known in circles like ours, this community on YouTube, and in the media, as it's one of those stories that you never want to go away. It's one of those cases where it feels like if we stop talking about it, it could have devastating effects on other children and their families as a whole, because without knowledge of it, history is bound to repeat itself, as a wise man once said. Throughout the years, Noreen Gosch has been called many horrible things, from nut job to crazy to pathetic to a liar to a desperate mother clinging to false hope. And while we may never know if everything she said about what happened to her son is true, many believe she has presented enough information that could be checked for accuracy and factuality if only someone would have the courage to do so. Our hearts go out to the Gosch family, and we hope one day, if everything Noreen has alleged and reported over the years is true, that one day justice will be served regardless of money, power, fame, or wealth, and that maybe, just maybe, Johnny can come home. We, for one, will be reporting the facts as we know them, and as always, praying for the victims and families we discuss on our channel. Well, folks, there you have it. the sad, strange disappearance of Johnny Gosch. I'm anxious to see your comments on this one, but please remember to keep it friendly and respectful. In the meanwhile, be good to yourselves and each other. Stay safe out there. If you have kids, hug them tight and keep an eye on them. As for me, I'll see you a little farther on down the trail. I'm Steve Stockton, and I'll talk to you next time.